participant in the coffee chat is a guy I've known for quite a while. He is a fixture in the tech scene. You know, I love Singapore, I love China, but I was in Kyoto, Japan last month for another tech conference, and I always feel like when I'm in Japan that I'm going into the future. I think that Japan is sort of like Korea and China, and that it's like planet Japan, planet Korea, planet China. It's a little bit insular. I think that's partially because it has its own domestic, captive user base. So a lot of stuff that's happening within that market doesn't really seep out to other markets. I think we're going to see later in the day with Korean DNA that that's starting to happen. But Japan is a really fascinating place. I think there's a lot to be learned from that market. And our next speaker is a guy that really is very, very much in tune. He got his PhD there. He's Turkish, raised in Germany, lives in Japan, writes for TechCrunch in Japan. Please put your hands together. Give me some juice. Warm welcome for Serkan Toto, everybody.
Ready? Yep. All right. Cool. I mean, thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you for having me. It's always good to be back in Singapore.
All the way from Japan, long way, huh?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so you blog a lot, right, about startups in Asia, right,
Yes.
for TechCrunch and AGG.
Yes, exactly.
So you are one of the more experienced bloggers who has seen basically from start to now.
You could say so, yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So now, you have seen a lot in Southeast Asia and Japan, right? Basically across Asia. So from then to now, what are the few things that has changed? And what are the few things that is more favorable right now?
Yeah, I think that's what I personally see is like two big things happening. First of all, I think that a couple of years ago, when you look at the web and the mobile and the gaming industries, all of these industries were separated, but right now they are rapidly integrated. So the pie, as a whole, just got bigger. And the second thing I'm seeing is that all the industries that I just was talking about are internationalizing at a very, very fast clip. And especially here in Asia, you see a lot of what I always call like Asian integration, right? I mean, you see Japanese companies coming into Southeast Asia. A couple of weeks ago, a Korean gaming company called Nexon. I mean, they went IPO in Tokyo. They didn't go IPO in New York or in Hong Kong or whatever. They chose Tokyo. And there's a lot of these examples in recent months. And today, if you look at the sponsor list for this event today, there's Chinese companies, there's Japanese companies sponsoring the event in Singapore. A couple of years back, that wasn't possible, but right now it is. So I think that these two big trends are interesting as far as the last, 4 or 5 years are concerned.
So you mentioned a lot about gaming startups.
Yeah.
So are we all about gaming startups? Like what other startups are you seeing that is, which sector are you seeing that is quickly moving?
Yeah, I think that if you look at Japan, but also also at some markets in Southeast Asia, I think that social gaming is one of the biggest markets out there. I mean, for me, social games, the business model of this specific areas, it's better than drugs, it's better than prostitution, it's better than weapons, it's better than gambling. It's just the best business model that the industry that we all here are in will ever see. I mean, I think that the virtual item sales concept will never be replicated in the next, 20 to 30 years. It's just the best thing ever.
Right, so right at the top of my head, there are a lot of Japanese companies, right,
Yes.
that are expanding to overseas,
Right.
So why is that happening?
Yeah, if you look at Japan, I think that Japan is the most mature market in Asia, even if you compare them to China. If you look at Japan right now, I mean, mobile penetration is like 100%, it's 100%, almost 100%. 3G, broadband penetration is over 70%. I think Japan has the third fastest broadband connection in the world. The population is rich, but the problem is that the population is not only getting older, but it's also shrinking. So if you look at Japan right now, 23% of Japanese people are 65 or older. So they're kind of like going out of the target group. And by 2060, 30% of the Japanese population will just vanish. I mean, in the next 15 years, and there's two things. So there's saturation on one point, and there's another thing. That's the aging population, the aging and the shrinking target group that startups actually can address to.
Right. So, are there any? Perhaps the earthquake also did trigger the move, right?
Yeah, I think the earthquake had a limited effect, but I think that the big effect is the bigger picture. And if you look at companies like DNA and Gree, the social gaming giants from Japan, those are listed companies, right? I mean, they have shareholders that are pressuring them into growing, right? And once you hit a certain ceiling in this limited market of Japan, you have to get out of the country in order to maintain growth. And DNA and Gree are not the only companies. So there are a lot of bigger Japanese companies that are going outside the market, especially Southeast Asia.
Right. So talking about Southeast Asia, like what are the trends that you are seeing in the Southeast Asian market?
Unfortunately, I am not seeing too much of innovation going on here. The thing is that you're seeing a lot of Me Too products, a lot of clones. So whenever people in Japan or in the Silicon Valley ask me, are there many startups in Southeast Asia which have new ideas, which totally blow you away? I have to go like, I don't know. I mean, there are not too many startups. There are not too many things going on here that totally blow me out of the water.
Not even one.
Of course, I mean there are startups here that I in this area that I do like. I mean, Chalkboard is one startup that might be up to something. It's still too early to tell, obviously. Another one is from Singapore. It's like Viki. I don't know much about the company. I mean, they can vanish in 2 years or something, right? I mean, but they are appearing to do very well. Another one is CinemaCraft, which is a Tokyo and Singapore-based a media solution company, kind of a cloud-based media solution company. That's interesting. But my point is that there is no. What I'm always saying is there is no. Where's the Airbnb of Indonesia, for example? Where's the Quora of Malaysia? Where's the Turntable FM that comes out of Southeast Asia? Where's the Square that comes out of this region? It's still very, very early in the life cycle of the entire web and mobile industry here in Southeast Asia. I think it will take years. My personal opinion, if you compare Silicon Valley, which is the top benchmark in the entire world for our industry, with Southeast Asia, I think we're talking about 10 to 15 years.
10 to 15 years.
Yes.
All right, so let's look at Indonesia. All right, so you took a lot of interest in Indonesia. Right, you went to a couple of conferences, you speak at a couple of conferences.
Yeah.
So what is so interesting about Indonesia?
You mean conference-wise?
I mean, what is so interesting about startups in Indonesia? The growth, the trends?
Yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately, Asia will crush America, Asia will crush Europe, etc., etc. I think that the web and the mobile gaming, mobile markets will move. I mean, the power central will move away from America and Europe to Asia, just because the population here in Asia, the target groups here are so big. I mean, if you look at China and India combined, we have over 2.5 billion users. Southeast Asia, 600 million. Korea and Japan combined, they have 180 million. You cannot beat these numbers, right? The problem that this region has, APAC has, is that internet penetration is still very low. So if you believe the International Telecommunication Union, internet penetration in the APAC region is at 22%, and the world average is 30%. And the only region in the entire world that APAC is beating at the moment is Africa, right? And I think there's a huge potential for growth in the years going forward. And I think that Asian startups have a huge chance of tapping a gigantic market in the next 10 to 15 years that's still waiting to be developed.
Right. So, but the thing about Asia, right, it's a huge market for sure, right, in terms of numbers. But the thing is that Asia is a very fragmented continent as well, right? We have so many different languages. languages, right? Just alone in Singapore, we can communicate in English, Malay, Chinese, for example. Right? So in Vietnam, Vietnamese, Thailand, Thai, Indonesian, Bahasa. So I think that's one of the biggest problems. What do you think about it?
I think it is a big problem for the smaller countries like Singapore and Malaysia, because as a startup you ultimately have to scale at some point. Most startups at least. I think it's a big problem, and I think that still no company has cracked the nut. Right? I think that there's no big Southeast Asian company that I know of. I mean, maybe you know one that actually has conquered all of Southeast Asia and has managed to overcome all these language barriers and all these cultural barriers, etc., etc. I haven't heard of even one single example.
Right. So
do you know one?
Ming 33, perhaps?
33, yeah.
Doing pretty well, right?
Yeah, but I think like even in Ming 33's case, it's still very much Indonesia focused. If I'm not totally mistaken.
Well, they have like users that are becoming like a big Ming 33.
Excellent, yeah.
So they have users in Afghanistan, Bangladesh.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So let's go to the main meat of the topic, right? So I think last week you tweeted something that is like really, really interesting. And it's getting a lot of like traction. That tweet itself get a lot of traction. And I'm receiving like at least 3 emails, to talk about these things. So you tweeted this, right? You said that Asian startups doing mobile social apps for the global market are bound to fail, right? So you said, so that's basically what you tweet. Why?
I think for me, this example of mobile social startups is just an example. I think that a lot of these Asian startups that you see at the moment, the short answer is, the one sentence answer is, they are not good enough.
Well, but we do have a lot of different examples of like success cases, right? Like you mentioned about Greed, you mentioned about DNA, so
yes.
they are social and mobile.
Yes.
Gaming, right?
Yeah.
So they're doing pretty well right now. And
Yeah.
33 is doing pretty well right now. Yeah. So what do you have to say?
Yeah, it's very simple. MiG-33, DNA, and we are not global companies.
So you don't take them as global companies. So even when they acquire OpenGame, that doesn't occur.
Of course, I mean, you can Synca also has enough money to acquire, I don't know, a smaller North American carrier, right? I mean, but that doesn't make them a global company. If you look at the big Japanese companies that you just mentioned, they still have a very Japanese business culture. Like, if you look at in the next few days, Gree and DNA will release their financial reports. You will see that the American businesses are losing money. The only businesses that are making money are the Japanese domestic ones, right? And if you look at the headcount of DNA and Gree, what they have in Japan and what they have in outside Japan, if you look at the users they have in Japan and they have outside Japan, especially DNA, it's still very much a Japanese play, right? Gree and DNA, they want to become global companies. That's absolutely true. They made huge acquisitions. They have a lot of money. They mean it. They want to conquer Southeast Asia, but they're definitely not global companies. Not at this point, and they are not globally successful companies.
I think Gree can hear you.
Come again?
I think Gree can hear you.
Yeah. I'm saying this publicly like all the time.
All right.
And it's still early, right? I mean, Gree has opened their US office 12 months ago, right? I mean, you cannot expect to conquer the whole world in 12 months, right? I mean, even Facebook didn't do that, right? It's still very early. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope these companies that you just mentioned can do it. I hope that Southeast Asian mobile social apps can do it, but I'm very, very pessimistic. Another thing that we can talk about is, where's the, if you look back at history, right? I mean, where's the big mobile social gaming, mobile social application out of Asia that made it in the US? Nobody cares. Absolutely nobody cares. Where's the Asian startup?
I can name 2.
Okay, which one?
If you can consider Pokemon, that's one.
Pokemon?
Yeah, Game Boy console.
Yes, yes, of course. I mean, that's.
And second one is Tamagotchi.
Okay.
And then it's inspired by Benjamin. Thanks a lot. Tamagotchi. Yeah. And the third one, Digimon.
Exactly. So what you just mentioned, first of all, these are games. That's a completely different animal. And second of all, these are not web products, right? I mean, this conference is not about toys. not about console games, we're talking about web and mobile applications. Pokemon, it's delivered on a hardware from Nintendo, and Nintendo has a completely different standing. I mean, they're successful in the US since the 1980s, right? So that's, I really want to be as friendly as possible, but these examples don't count.
Okay.
Not in the industry, not in our industry that we are all a part of.
Okay, so you gave an opinion, right? You say that they are bound to fail. So, any suggestions? How should we start? Like, do we just forget about being an entrepreneur?
No, I think that personally, what many Asian entrepreneurs like that, I think the Toto problem, it's just my personal opinion, what I've observed in the last years when I talk to people, when I go to conferences, when I talk to people, entrepreneurs are emailing me, we are in contact with via different channels, etc., etc. I think that a lot of Asian entrepreneurs, not all of them obviously, but a lot of East Asian, Southeast Asian entrepreneurs, they are not working hard enough. Now sometimes I see, sometimes I go to Indonesia and places like Malaysia, etc., etc. I talk with, I can tell you one example. I talk with an incubator. I will not say which country and which incubator that was. We were talking with the head VC there, and they had like startups in the back. And it was like 6 o'clock in the evening on, I don't know, Wednesday or Thursday or something, and people were starting to leave. Right? Engineers were starting to leave. Designers were starting to leave, like right before my eyes. Right? I was talking to the VC. I mean, what are these guys doing? Are they going out for dinner and coming back or something like that? And they said, no, they're leaving, right? And and that's why I see the disconnect, between these pipe dreams of going like global, and we want to go to the US, and then we have engineers, probably maybe even the CEOs, leaving at times that are comfortable for them. And that's not the way you can do business, right? I mean, if you do it like that, you are bound to fail. It's impossible to win against these like entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley when you leave the office at 6 o'clock. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous.
So, in other words, like, can I just sum it up? One problem that you see in Southeast Asia is that entrepreneurs over here, we are too lazy.
No, I wouldn't say lazy. I think they are not. That's a difference, right? I wouldn't say they are lazy, but especially not all of them. But I think that a lot of them are not working hard enough.
Lazy.
No, it's not. That's different, right? You will not get me saying that they are lazy. Not at all. But they're definitely, in average, they are not working as hard as people in Silicon Valley. That's my personal observation. Again, I could be totally wrong, but I don't think so.
Okay, so you have a lot of strong opinions for startups in Japan and Southeast Asia. So are there any startups that you really like? Can we don't talk about Wiki, Topboard? We mentioned about them like so many times. Besides that,
yeah, I think what I always do is because I'm questioning myself. I'm questioning the scope of what I can oversee, etc., etc. I'm talking a lot with venture capitalists, with people in the media like you that have a bird's eye view of things what's going on in the industry. And I can give you an example in Japan. So when I talk with people, so I'm based in Japan by the way. So when I talk with VCs in Japan who know everything about the market and get pitched like on a daily basis, I'm asking them, do you see like any interesting startup? Can you give me one example? And they go like, right? And that's happening since 2010, and that's a really bad example. If not only I am not seeing anything, but the people that I think should see them are not seeing anything. That's a bad example. So if you ask me about Asian startups, yeah, I mean, Chalkboard has a very interesting concept. And there's InSync from they moved from Manila to Singapore. They have some interesting things in their pocket. VP has a very good, very interesting concept. For the case of VP, it makes sense because them being based in Southeast Asia, physically being based in Southeast Asia, constantly adds value to the product, right? I mean, if they were a company out of Switzerland, it wouldn't make any sense. But there are not many examples like that. At least as far as I can see. I mean, maybe you can list up a few startups that totally excite you, that have new ideas that I might have missed. But from Japan, not that many. And in Southeast Asia, I'm not seeing a terrible amount of startups either that are unbelievably of high quality.
Right. So hopefully you'll see some startup in here later on.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So there are a lot of investors are coming over to Southeast Asia, right? And then they're trying to build a fund, either in Singapore or whether in Indonesia. So from your point of view, you say that, I mean, I'm just trying to make things short, right? That startups in Southeast Asia sucks.
Okay, people have catch me saying anything like that, but
okay, we are not working hard enough.
Yeah, they're not working hard enough. It's also very early in the entire life cycle.
So for investors coming into Southeast Asia, is it way too early, or do you think it's good for them to start exploring?
I think it's good for them to start exploring, and I think that what a lot of Japanese venture capitalists are doing is very intelligent. They're coming to places like Singapore, they're coming to places like Indonesia to be able to track what's going on in the industry at a very early stage. And when a few years down the road, when a company emerges, they're there, right? And I think that's a very intelligent, a very Japanese approach to be there very early. Yeah, so I don't think it's a mistake.
So you feel that from the investor point of view, it is right timing to invest in Southeast Asia?
Yeah, investment-wise, I don't know, but it's a case-by-case basis. But bird's eye kind of perspective, it's definitely time that people are looking at Southeast Asia.
Awesome. So I mean, just want to ask something personal.
Sure.
So besides writing for TechCrunch and HTTP, what are you doing?
Actually, I stopped writing as a permanent writer for TechCrunch just, 48 hours ago.
48 hours ago.
48 hours ago. So it was my January 31 was my last day as a permanent writer. So I'm still a contributor. I still have access to the as an author, etc., but not anymore on a daily basis. So what I'm doing at the moment is, or what I've been doing in the last 2 years is I've been doing a lot of consulting work. So but I'm not consulting to individual startups. I'm just consulting to one startup at the moment in America. But my main target group, if you will, are financial institutions. So I'm consulting to hedge funds, private equity companies, investment banks, and companies like that.
All right. So where do you read your posts? TechCrunch or HTTP?
On TechCrunch, I've written 2,700 articles, mostly on the Japanese market, but also on Asian companies. In the past years, there's a huge archive of very Asia-focused articles. But going forward, I'm not doing that anymore in this frequency. But I'm continuing to write for AsiaGen, which is a very Japan-focused technology blog. And also on my personal side, I'm doing a lot of blogging for on Japan's social gaming industry because I'm just fascinated by the industry as a whole. But I'm not writing as a permanent writer anymore.
All right. Okay, so I think that's all that we have.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks a lot.